So we're in the break now for the NHL. Four nations face off. I'm big into it. I can't wait for this thing to get going. But the next thing on the horizon is the trade deadline, which comes up 2 weeks after we do the restart. March 7th is when that is. We thought that with this Four Nations break, there might be some deals done before the break. There absolutely was. The Mikko Rantanen one being a huge one. JT Miller going to the Rangers, another big one. And we kind of also see it as, hey, you don't have to wait till the trade deadline to know where your team is at and how this year is going to shake out. We have another barometer here at the Four Nations break, and the Bruins go in not well. They go in with back-to-back losses, both games where they had leads going into the third period. A disaster against Vegas on Saturday that was so predictable. They lose that one late in regulation. They give up the game-winning goal twice in the last 2 minutes. So it's not going well. They're outside of a playoff spot. They're only 2 points back, but they need to leapfrog two teams that have games in hand, and there are two teams right behind them within 2 points that also have games in hand. Their percentage right now to make the playoffs is under 15%. They're not making the playoffs. So stop with this charade that they're going to be buying at the deadline. And I don't know, I guess, what we want Don Sweeney to say, but for him to go up there in that interview on Wednesday night on ESPN and just be like, oh, well, we'll try to improve our team. It's like, dude, there's no way you're improving this team at the trade deadline. Like, let's be totally honest here. The thing that is your number one need, not even close to a second need, is number one center. You thought you had one in this free agency last summer. You tried to go bargain bin with it. Bargain bin player for less than a bargain bin price at $775 a year to Elias Lindholm. He's a third-line center, barely. The guy is much closer to a 40-point player than he is to an 80-point player. And yet you paid him almost $8 million a year. Even with the increased cap in a couple years, that's not going to look good. And so you're not going to get a number one center at the trade deadline. Just not going to happen. Maybe, just maybe, Vancouver is still going in the wrong direction and they listen to some offers for Pettersson. And I would love to have Pettersson on this team for sure, but I just doubt that that's happening. I really doubt that that's happening. So if you are the Bruins and you are not slated to be a playoff team right now, and there's no move you can make by the trade deadline to become a playoff team and actually improve your roster, then what is the effing point? Sell, sell, sell. You don't have many assets out there. Sell them. I mean, you can get your way into a top 10 pick if you do this thing right. It's probably somewhere between 10 and 12. It's not there, man. What benefit is this team going to have if you keep Charlie Coyle and Trent Frederick and let them walk away for nothing in the summer? What benefit is this team going to have if you keep, Coyle, Frederick, Brazo, Lindholm, maybe even Geeky, Hampus Lindholm I'm talking about, Carlo? It does nothing. And they actually have some trade value. Carlo's 29. Try trading him when he's 30. After a season like he's just had, and albeit a not very great season last year either. Then try trading him. A mediocre season, a bad season, oh yeah, now he's 30 years old. Hampus Lindholm, stock is going to be high. Had a good start to the season. Obviously, the great 22-23, was good in the playoffs last year. Not a bad cap hit, $6.5 million. If you could trade Elias Lindholm too, go right ahead. There's no way you can at $775 a year. But just there's no use in keeping these guys at all. And if you got to fill out your lineup with a couple of fourth liners and, Patra and Lysell and Merkulov to end the season, great. Because it's not any different than what you have right now. Get some younger bottom six guys and some draft picks. This is not going anywhere. So maybe there was some doubt a week or two ago of what they could be doing at the trade deadline. They weren't going to be big buyers necessarily, but now it's like no question, man, sell it, sell it, sell it. And I don't know if I trust this front office to do that. As we talked about all season, The Jacobs family cares about one thing and one thing only. They'll tell you it's winning the Stanley Cup, but it's not. It's making the playoffs and getting that extra playoff gate. In fact, that has been the Bruins from day fucking one. Man, day one. Charles Adams, Weston Adams, that's all they cared about was getting to the playoffs and getting that extra ticket revenue. And it's the same thing 100 years later. Well, if you make the and they'll throw it under the guise of, well, if you make the playoffs, anything can happen. With this team, it can't. They're not good enough to make anything happen. And if they made the playoffs this year, it would be a mistake. It would set this team back. It would set this franchise back if they made the playoffs. If for some reason they did, am I going to be happy in the moment? Sure, I will, because it's playoff hockey. But if we're talking about the best things for this team and this franchise, this organization, that making the playoffs is not it. It's not it. And you've got all kinds of holes to figure out, man. But you do not have above average NHL players at the center position. You just don't. I'm hoping Patra becomes one of those. I'm hoping he becomes a top 6 center. I see a blueprint and a vision to where he is that. But Elias Lindholm is not a top 6 center. Like, that is an all-time bad free agent signing for the Bruins. You paid him almost $8 million a year to come in and be your number 1 center. And by fucking January, he was your third-line center. You have Charlie Coyle playing above him. You have Pavel Zacha playing out of position to play center on the first line. Shit, if you can get something for Zacha, I would entertain those offers too. And I like Zacha. In a role he's not playing. I like Zacha as like a third-line center. I wish he was a better defensive forward than he is. So I don't know how much you can get for him. He can't really play special teams. And, he's obviously not a high-volume scorer or anything. But Hampus Lindholm can play both. Trent Frederick, someone will think, oh, he's gotten in a couple fights this year. Maybe he gives us a little bit of an edge. And you, as Don Sweeney, don't you dare correct them, okay? Don't you say, no, he doesn't bring any muscle whatsoever and doesn't bring any value in 5-on-5 at all. Don't tell him that. Sell, sell, sell. So easy. If the Bruins have the same team they have right now, a month from now, everyone needs to be gone. Everyone in the front office needs to be gone. They need to be gone anyway. Because I was looking at the Jim Montgomery numbers, and the Blues are not a good team. They're below 500, and they got a little bit of a boost the first month or so with Monty, but it hasn't been the same since. And so some Bruins fans would look at that and be like, well, we should have just kept them. And I don't mind Monty, but like that's something that needed to happen. That needed to be the first domino. I said it from the day he got fired. He's not the scapegoat here that he will be for a little bit. But that needs to be the first domino. And so far, that's the only domino that's fallen. I don't care if you trade a core guy if you get the right deal. And you need to shake up the front office. It hasn't worked the last couple years, the last 2 years. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And I do not trust the guy in charge and Don Sweeney to do a rebuild for this team. How could you? How could you trust him to do it? And I know Bruins fans don't either. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps out a ton. We're bringing you fresh Boston sports content every weekday, live at high noon Eastern time for the hour, and then wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you tomorrow on The Cam Show.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.